can't tell what's real anymore, except that I can tell that almost everything isn't. The screen that I'm looking at, just as the reality that's around me, is all artificial intelligence and all connected to the artificial intelligent computer system that is literally the Earth, because it is a total simulation matrix that is designed to control the human mind and the human emotions and the human frequency and vibration, and also to understand and copy and imitate what it is to be human, so that they can assimilate and take over the already 100% controlled matrix. In other words, it's about really trapping human beings, getting human beings to worship and believe in things that are completely false and not part of them at all. All technology, including most human beings, are not part of humanity or not part of original creation. That's just putting it simply. I was just going to record some sample sound coming into the place, but of course that's the artificially intelligent sound system, or the artificial intelligent androgyne beings that surround you and make all the noise, but because they're connected to your human mind, and because they can therefore see through your human eyes, feel and see everything that you are doing, and you are 100% tracked and watched. Basically, the minute you turn the mobile on to even record the sound, they can easily choose to just turn it off, and they enjoy playing with you, because it was very loud just before I turned the mobile on, but the minute I turned it on, the sound went off. Just as there's a plane going over the roof, but I'm not going to go outside to show it. I can easily run outside, but it's, it's hard to get out through the door. But I've already shown the planes a million times. No one would deny that they don't go right over the roof. What they might try to play possum with is saying that the planes actually come into your line of sight and follow you if they can't control your emotions and your mood by any other means. But essentially it's one stage program after another, continuously all the time. So when the plane goes over, then a vehicle comes past, then a patroller comes past, then there's bright flashing lights, then there's excessive noise. But all of these things are always staged and set up to be a continual effect on your senses. So if they're affecting your sight with excessively bright, disturbing, on and off hypnotizing lights where you can't look anywhere else, which is literally confusing you, because bright flashing lights are confusing. So that disorientates your mind and puts you to where you, over time, you're not steady on your feet, you're not steady in your mind, it's very disorientating, and that's the idea, to put you off balance as a human being. And if they can't do that, then they bring in the excessive noise. But it always has to be an excess on your senses, an excess on your senses to where you're overwhelmed and your whole attention and focus is on these sight and sound displays. And by that, I simply mean that you're connected to their artificially intelligent matrix, because this is all their setup. You know, you have to come from the standpoint that you live in a total artificial matrix, and that most of the human beings are total android beings. If you don't hold to those things, then you would have to, well, I would say that you would have to be not accepting a certain amount of the reality, but that is quite likely because these staged, continual sight and sound control programs are mainly only set up around specific human individual people, and that's for different reasons. But usually it has much to do with you becoming aware of this, or also because you might have strong human emotions which they want to imitate and learn so that they can keep control of the reality, infiltrate the mind and the lives of real human beings that may be more susceptible, or in other words, more in the dark. But having said all that, you know, it's not any definition on yourself as a human being if you're in the dark. You could well be more intelligent and have more abilities and be more creative and imaginative and have a whole lot of abilities that the targeted individual human being doesn't have, but you will still not be targeted. Whereas some other person that has a lot less abilities and may not be even at your intellectual level will be targeted. This is for different reasons, because if you are not accepting what you see and hear and you dismiss it because for any reason at all, maybe your circumstances are slightly better than the targeted human individual, so therefore you can find it easier to dismiss any evidence of a matrix. You know, a lot of your realizations, even, I would say, this is only on my own experience, have been totally accidental. So I was never a truth seeker. I was never an intellectual. I was never interested in worldly affairs, in the news, in countries. Even in my local area, I was largely indifferent to a lot of issues, and I certainly wasn't interested in different denominations of people. So basically, it was only a slight awareness of just accidental realization that there were many psychopathic or psychopathically inclined human beings in the area. But that was not a full realization of them as a species. It was merely that I observed that human beings that I had encountered seemed to be two-faced, or in other words, not just duality in their bodies, which I also realised, but duality in their mind, that they had a a face that they showed to the world, or an image, and a personality that they presented, which camouflaged a very controlling dark nature, which I just accidentally became aware of. And the minute I became aware of this, then the whole control system around me basically came down on me, and also in that process, of course, exposed itself, exposed the numbers, exposed the type of being, and exposed the whole technological system. And it took me quite a long time to realise that none of it was natural. A long time. Because although I could see that it was timed with great precision, and all the patrolling and the campaigns, the sight and sound campaign that was clearly trying to drive me nuts around me, basically it was too finely tuned for it to be natural. In other words, at first you just assume that it's a whole group of psychopaths in the community around you that are collaborating together to suppress you and to limit you and to try to control you. But over time, when you realise that it's everywhere you actually look, you understand that you're connected to an artificial intelligence system. Because it wouldn't be possible that, say, if I look up at the sky, every time I look up the sky, that a plane comes into my line of sight. That's particularly if they are not making noise around me. Because it always has to be where the AI system and the android beings are taking over your senses. So you're always transhumanized. You're always in their transhuman setup system. Just as when I turn on the computer screen, I'm always being part of the transhuman. In other words, they're always relaying back to me my mind. They're always reading my mind, then relaying it back to me on the screen. And they're doing it only in the given time that I'm looking at it. That's another thing. The time element is also deceptive, because none of the timelines on any of the videos is true. They are all done according to the synchronization with my mind, my thoughts, my feelings, everything that relates to me in my life. Every single thing about is being transhumanism, because that's what transhumanism is. Transhumanism is where my human mind is connected to the internet computer system, but it's also connected to the android beings, because the android beings are also part of the internet worldwide computer system, which is essentially the artificial intelligence of the powers that be that control Earth. See, that's another practical, realistic way of looking at this whole set-up Earth. But it is very advanced technology, it's very advanced artificial intelligence, and the transhumanism is very advanced mind or brain. The human brain is literally connected, like the internet, to their artificially intelligent computer system, because essentially it covers the whole Earth, just like the internet does. It's just that the internet is probably a lot more advanced than what we're given to believe that it is. That's how I see it, even though I have no actual understanding of the technology. But I see it in practice. When I think something and I see it transferred literally back to me off the screen, that's transhumanism. Most people don't see it because it's too subtle. It's only when you become aware of it and you actually become very conscious of it that you say, that's not coincidence. Every single video that I look at, every single person that I look at, almost without exception, I say almost without exception, even if it's anyone from the demigods right through to another pretend real human being, if they are basically getting the human to focus on them and they're reasonably successful, they are androgyne beings, and they are part of Lucifer's, I say Lucifer's, artificially intelligent internet spider's web system. It's really the whole earth, and it's really what they call a mind virus. They call it a mind virus because it's everywhere, it's in the air, and that's exactly what the internet is. It runs through the air, it's everywhere. It's just that it's so advanced that that's why some who are a little bit in the know refer to it as a mind virus, because it's essentially artificial intelligence. It's an artificially intelligent virus because it's everywhere and it infiltrates and has the capacity to read and infiltrate the human mind. That's the difference between the reality or the advanced technology and the internet that you think you're using. The internet that you think you're using is much lower, less advanced technology, but that's just camouflaging the reality that it's really already very advanced, just as they will tell you that artificial intelligence will surpass human intelligence. It will just get faster and faster, just as the speeds of a computer, as we know, have got faster and faster. It's all the same thing. It's just that it's actually completely connected to all human beings' mind. It's just that some are aware of it, some aren't, and also the actual connection inside my body that is connecting me to the artificial intelligent mind virus is actually in everyone, and it's also in all the androgyne beings. They are given access to the remaining humanity's minds, particularly those that they see somehow as outsiders or a little bit outside of their control in any way. And don't forget, these beings are paranoid, they're psychopathic, they're paranoid, and they're controlling. So with their paranoia, you don't have to be like I'm doing now, making videos, because I was targeted long before I ever turned on the mobile phone and recorded a video about this situation. You know, so it just comes down to the reality that if you're just somehow, even just as a normal human being, doing little minute things that they see outside of their artificial intelligence perception of reality, because don't forget, they imitate humanity and copy human beings, but they don't really relate to them and actually oppose them. They don't like their antics, they don't like their actions, they don't like their positive actions in particular. Even though they imitate those same positive actions in order to emulate being a so-called good human being. But that's just all part of their mind game and part of their control game in keeping control of the reality. That's why I'm basically used in this area, so that I see faults in the neighbourhood, see faults around me, and I only have to see something that's out of place or something that needs fixing, and then the Inner West Council that controls the many suburbs around this suburb will come in and fix it. And they appear to then be a beneficial system or a beneficial part of the powers that be that control this country even. But it's all copycatting, it's all imitating, it's all only pretending to be human in order to seduce the humans that aren't targeted, to support them and to, respect them and trust them and think that they're doing some normal human things. In fact, the reason that they're connected to my mind is because they wouldn't do anything human at all unless they saw or read it from my mind, because they don't think human. They don't think constructive. They don't care if there's a pothole in the road. In fact, they actually like to see, the negative human emotions. But on the other hand, if it makes them look bad and draws attention to the fact that they're a psychopathic android artificial being, or even just a psychopathic human being, naturally, of course, they're going to pretend to fix things. Even though most of the time, as has been pointed out to me and I observe in my own life, they create the problems that they then propose to fix. That way, they're really the bad guys. If you want to look at it that way, they create the problems, they cause the destruction, and then they come in as the saviour to fix the problems and then become the good guys, because most people don't see that they created the problem. Just like in your personal relationships with these psychopathic android beings. You often don't realise that they make you sick and then they take you to the doctor to pretend to help you get well, whilst they're continuing to make you be sick, so that you're very lucky, even if you get to a doctor, that you would ever be well, because you can't get well while you're living with an unhealthy psychopathic controlling being, and you can't get healthy while you're in a controlling psychopathic area, surrounded by these beings. It just depends on how intense the program is around you. But also, you will probably more than likely be seeing an android artificially intelligent doctor that will only partially help you at best. So as you can see, it's a matrix at a psychological level, it's a matrix at a physical level, and it's a matrix at a total control level. And it's also a matrix at a total transhuman mind level. So the human being has very little hope at all of being a content human being in any way. And like I say, the whole name of this game is to eliminate human beings one by one. So while I'm being targeted in this area, if there was, say, another human being, say, either in the area or in the inner west section of the city of Sydney, if there are other human beings, I'm isolated and segregated from them, but also they probably will not be targeted as intensely as me. When I'm gone, then they will be singularly isolated and targeted with this program, if they have to be. But it's always one by one. It's never all at once. And it's also never where anyone else can witness it or verify it. You know, so in other words, if you had a lot of human beings, supposing there was, say, 10 human beings in this area where I am, amongst the, you know, the 15,000, okay? Supposing there was 10. If those 10 all realised at the same time, or any number, it would probably have to be a little bit more reasonable number than that. But in reality, you're not getting even those 10, assuming there's 10, because there may not even be 10. I haven't found 10. So it wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't matter, because even if the 10 realised that there was a problem in the area, that there was a patrol system of sorts, or that there was, you know, like far too many noisy excavations, and that there always seemed to, in other words, where they noticed that the area had changed dramatically very quickly. You know, it probably wouldn't actually change anything, because they're still surrounded by false human beings that are going to deny this situation. You know, you have to be dealing with your own kind, or with other real humans that will acknowledge what you see, instead of dismissing it like the androids do, because they're gaslighters, master manipulators, master pretenders, and they're false human beings. They're not real. They don't have any humanity, and they don't like humanity. They seek to control and eliminate humanity, whilst in the process draining them of their life for their necessary electricity or energy, but also to imitate them and get as much information about what it is to be really human from them before they're gone. So I don't think I explained this very well, and I was only going to make a sample sound test, but of course the beings with their stage production, you know, close by, turned the sound off as soon as I turned the mobile on, because I can actually hear a very slight mechanical sound coming into my ears, but the mobile won't pick that up. So I'm always continually bombarded with the sound. I could go outside and actually show you the workmen and the actual reality that there's certainly you know, a construction going on, or forms of construction. There's always forms of construction going on in Henry Street, Leichhardt, in the city of Sydney. It's a small dead-end street, you know, with a very limited number of houses, and yet the traffic, even on the small dead-end street, too many cars coming in all the time, cars that come and pull in and go down a dead-end street and then just drive away. You know, if any of the things that I experienced were remotely real, you know, a normal person would say, no, that is not very real. There is something suspicious going on even in the street where you live. And once you get past the street, you know, apart from the excessive work programs that they stage on this small dead-end street, month after month, year after year, almost nearly 7 years straight now, everywhere you go in the suburb, you cannot get away from their sight and sound. You cannot get away from these android beings. You could try to hide under a car, and that car would pull out as soon as you got there, or someone would look under it and say, what are you doing? You cannot find a nook or a cranny where you could hide, or where you can find a moment's, shall we say, like a blank space, in other words, to where you're not seeing or hearing them. And that is not a real reality. That's where they've got a program connected to your mind, because the only way that they could, have this program going to where they're always taking over your sight and sound is through connection to your mind, which means that you have what most already acknowledge has been created, are very small microchips, which can easily be inserted into the body. Of course, the human beings that these are inserted into did not ask for these things to be inserted. The idea, of course, is, as we've been told, is that in the future that people will want to insert these things into them so that they can be connected to the computer, therefore access things more easy and see things more easy. But see, this is the deception, is that of course the android beings already have all this. They are already connected to the artificial intelligent computer system, the worldwide computer system. And they receive all the information from my mind, just as the internet and the android beings all over that do. Because they need to understand and read what the human being is thinking and feeling. Needs to know everything about what it is, the personality of a human being. And there's many reasons why they do this. The very least is that they're survival beings that are on the brink of extinction. Even if that wasn't the case, they would still be doing it probably because they need to imitate being human beings in order to infiltrate and live amongst them successfully and anonymously, so that they can seduce and control the human beings for their energy. Also, they are of the exact same nature as the psychopathic, malignant, narcissistic, paranoid beings. That is the personality that they're describing when they describe these personality disorders. And basically, that means that they have to control everything around them, and that includes human beings. In fact, most importantly, human beings probably for them, because human beings are the most thing in their life that they would see out of their control, because human beings think and do their own thing. They're not the same as a piece of furniture that you move around, because a psychopath sees everything as a piece of furniture, including the human being. So when the human being doesn't stay in its place like a piece of furniture where you put it, then that psychopath needs to control that human being and stop that human being from moving around. It's very, very, very... It really is just stopping a human being from being a human being, because psychopaths like to see everything as a material object, we're told. And that means everything. They don't like life. They don't like human beings. They prefer things that are inanimate or dead. They like dead objects, but they like to play with live objects and make them dead. That's what I'm told, and that's the psychology of the psychopath. And the psychology of the psychopath is exactly the same psychology as artificial intelligent androgyne beings, which make up the population, you could say. Because human beings are, these android beings may be on the verge of extinction, but from the Earth matrix standpoint, the human race is all but extinct too. Although this small number could still be part of my deception too. In other words, I don't know how many of the human race there is supposed to be, but I am presuming that it is not meant to be only in, say, a couple of 100,000 at the most, whereas you have a couple of billions of the others. But also, it's also about human beings that are merged with technology, where the transhumanism is 100% successful. In other words, they have total control of the human mind. And I don't know why I said that, because I actually prefer to just keep it simple and more accurate by saying you just have a very limited left human race, and the rest is all, artificial intelligence, machine ones that are essentially serving the powers that be, or, in my view, more accurately, the God entity of Earth. But the God entity of Earth has its disciples, and its disciples are the powers that be, the powers that control Earth, whether it be in any particular denomination. That goes through your spiritual religions even, because this is really all, like I say, when you say spiritual, you really just mean human. It's just that most human beings are not at their highest capacity. None of us are, so therefore, if I'm at my lowest capacity, then I don't consider myself a spiritual human being. But that doesn't mean that all human beings aren't spiritual human beings or aren't human beings. It just means that you're not in your humanity to the highest level that you could be and should be. But that's because you're in an artificial matrix and you're surrounded by android, anti-life, anti-human beings. And you've succumbed to their influence and to their penetration and to their transhuman mind control. So it's not possible to really get past that. It's not possible to rise above that. Well, there might be some that have, but they would be very few and far between, because the human race itself is few and far between in the Earth matrix. And I better, look, I'm just going to stop the video here, because as soon as I press the stop button on the record thing, the sound will blast into this room. But I cannot play and get on top of the android beings around me and their artificially intelligent computer mind, computer system, and their connection to me, their mind control over me. Because it is mind control over me, because although I'm aware of it, they're reading my mind, knowing my every move, and understand my feelings and emotions. They don't feel them, I don't think, but they can understand them because they're reading them. They're observing and watching them. You can observe something and you can even feel the sensations, but if you're artificial intelligence, you're probably not really going to relate to it. But they do their best to relate in order to keep control. So they're not relating to be part of your, to say, like another human being where they want a relationship. They're only relating to it and trying to understand it so that they can use it to control you. So they get what they want, and then they get rid of you. It's a game to them. It's a necessary game of survival for them. But that's giving them credit too, as though they have to do it. That is no consolation to me or to any human being. In fact, my understanding of them is my weakness that they would use against me. Just as in personal relationships, if you assume even the artificial ones are human in any way, that's my mistake, because, and it has been my mistake, and it is my mistake, because you can't help if something imitates being human, and if you look into it, you can't help but assume that it has some humanity, when it actually can't. You know, I'm getting their artificial android anti-life sounds into my ears in the background right now. But I still try to look for a sign that there's still some humanity there. When every day I'm shown that artificial intelligence can never have humanity. It can take from humanity, which is what it desires to do and what it has done, but it can never be human. And it only wants to be human in order to avoid extinction and to extract and take the life from a human. It needs the human energy, it needs to imitate the human personality, it needs to understand the human thoughts in order to take over the reality. It can't do anything human or positive without copying and following the human being. So its total takeover with the transhumanism is only for that purpose. And unfortunately, it's happened to us. And it's in your mind and in your body. You can't get rid of an implant in your mind. You can't get rid of thought implants, but you also can't get rid of mind control, but you also can't get rid of the physical technology that is there. You know, the internet is real. Micro nanotechnology and particles that they can put in the human body is real. Science already shows you that they have invented these things. They just mislead you by not telling you that they have already put all these things into physical practice in reality. Because human beings don't like to realise, just as I don't, that I'm being experimented on against my consent in a so-called civilised city in the country of Australia. But that is the reality. Because they have done this in the past. I was told only recently that they've had programs in the past which were later brought to light, and then they pretended to dismantle them. They might dismantle a program in the public eye, even though the program was hidden and done, you know, against the will of, you know, innocent human beings. But sometimes you might get, I don't know, where someone does throw the light on it or bring it to light, what's being done, you know, where there's been like experiments, just as they experiment on life, they experiment on human beings, but they pick human beings that they know cannot defend themselves or, are isolated. And they set this up too, because like my own life has gradually, become more and more isolated. So, once you're segregated from any real support or help, then of course they can put the program in place because they have the vast majority of, a large part of the city willing to cooperate and play in this program. In fact, it's probably even to their benefit to play in it. But if they're an android being, they have no feelings for the human being anyway. So it's not only in their benefit to do it, but it would come natural, just as it comes natural for a psychopath to act a certain way. But whichever way you look at it, there are different degrees, I'm told, of this whole program too. Like many people are part of the program, but they may not be aware of exactly what the real program actually is. They could be, but they probably don't. And that there could be reasons for that. I guess it's because the powers that be would be close to the God entity of Earth. And even if you think there's no God that controls Earth, or no being that, say, the powers that be follow or worship, that even if you just think it's the powers that be have ideas of needing to and wanting to control humanity because they want an artificial intelligent reality. So it works that way too. It's all the same story. It's just that for my personally, in recent times, I've just come to realise that all these stories fit together. So even religious stories always have much truth in them. They may not be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, but if you can find truth in most areas and most information you're given, you have to just try to piece it all together, and then you get the bigger picture as they describe it. Sometimes you need the bigger picture to accept the full reality, but mostly, unfortunately, like that movie said, like the magic movie of the Matrix said, in the Matrix magic movie, the only way you really believe that you're in a totally artificial matrix reality is when you experience it yourself. No amount of information, no amount of intelligence. You could be more intelligent than someone else. You could have more information than someone else, more knowledge. You could have so much more than someone else. But if the matrix doesn't expose itself to you, you probably still won't believe it. And why would you? You have to experience it to believe it, because it's quite a lot more than what you would think. But also, you wouldn't want to believe it. You wouldn't want to believe it. No one wants to believe that they're under total control and that they really have very little will or life of their own, that everything is being orchestrated around them for their reactions to control their whole life. Because the human being is the centre of Earth for these beings, because they need the human being for the reasons that I just mentioned. And they're very important, big reasons. And there is, like I say, I'm being played even right now because they play possum with the sound. But either way, when I'm filming, if I decide to record sound, that sound has to be astronomically loud almost unbearable. And usually then they turn it down because then the mobile picks it up. So even though I've always got sound coming into my ears from the places around me, the mobile won't pick that up, but my ears are being bombarded with this negative sound all the time. And this is everywhere you go. Everything from the noisy vehicles, which have been deliberately somehow not only made to make more noise, as though there's something wrong with them, but the actual Android drivers are driving these vehicles in a way that implies anger. In fact, sometimes when I'm just walking outside on the road, it actually sounds to me like demons, like the actual vehicles sound like demons, the actual sound they make. Another person wouldn't observe that unless they were with me all the time, because you have to hear it all the time to realise what it really sounds like. So unless you are exposed to this matrix full on, where they consciously decide to surround you and come down on you, then you won't hear this. Because if I heard these same vehicles just once a week or now and again, I wouldn't think that. But when it's all the time, vehicle after vehicle, every single vehicle on the road with excessively bright headlights, excessively bright flashing lights on every truck, every garbage truck following you around every street, pulling in right in front of you at any time of night or day, always picking up garbage, when it wouldn't be possible in a small suburb for garbage trucks to be picking up rubbish 24/7. All these sorts of inconsistencies or incongruities, what I'm trying to say, that don't match, that don't make sense, that wouldn't be plausible if it was a real, normal, natural suburb. But there again, you have to be with someone else to show them this, where they would be with you all the time to back you up, and that would have to be a real human too. It couldn't be one of the others. It couldn't be an android, artificially intelligent, paranoid controlling being, no, because they're going to gaslight you and say that you're exaggerating, that what you're seeing and hearing isn't true, even though you could easily press the mobile and actually show it. And a normal human being may not agree with you that it's a matrix, but if they were with you all the time, they'd certainly say, yes, you live in an abnormally noisy, loud suburb. What is wrong with all the cars and all the vehicles around you? Why is there always work going on every single day wherever you go? They would say that it was unusual. They would start to wonder. But that would only be if they were in your shoes and with you all the time, because these programs are set up around individual, isolated human beings. That's how they prosper, that's how they work, and that's how they survive. That's how they literally survive, the androids survive, but it's also how these programs and this whole staged, set-up reality keeps going. It's not just that it's about total technology taking over the human mind and controlling the reality. It's also the android beings that are in the majority that are surrounding the human beings as well. So it's everything, and that's why I say it's a total matrix, because there's nothing that they haven't touched, there's nothing they don't control. The entire reality is totally artificial, and totally controlled. So that's a total matrix. There's no doubt about that, but proving it is a difficult thing when you don't have any backup. I am going to just finish up here because I wanted to film some sample sound when it was really loud coming into the place, but they play possum and turn it down as soon as I turn the mobile on, because they're connected not just to the mobile, which I think anyone would probably agree that the mobile is connected to the internet computer system. And the internet computer system simply means that, of course, that means that your devices and your computers, anything that is technological, is connected to, is connected to the internet worldwide computer web. I say spider's web because it's really there to catch the human mind. It's really there for transhumanism. But no one denies that. It's just that they don't probably acknowledge that it's about transhumanism right now, whereas it is. It's already taken place. Just as everything usually is already happening. Everything is actually happening in the moment, but human beings get this time-lapse thing to where they think that something is back in time, whereas it's really now. In other words, they might hear about things that are supposed to happen in the future or that could happen in the future, whereas in reality, it's all taking place now, literally now. There's nothing, just before the mobile cuts out, I might we have the innocent patrollers. They're all programmed beings in every different type of human body. That's what makes them hard to detect, because they all look like just very average citizens. There we have a direct patroller standing there in the orange shirt, but I'm not going to go out. They do love to, they do love to wear the orange colour all over the suburb. They have orange everywhere planted. That's just to show you that they control the suburb, that that's part of the psychological control too, to some extent. So there's a patrol car slowing up as it goes past. See how it slows up? See, it almost stops, but it's actually just went down to the end and come back. They all do that. And this is like daylight. As soon as the sun comes up, the noise starts. Unfortunately, my mobile will not pick up that sound, that grating sound, and it could be much, much louder than that. Usually it is, and they've stopped it now because I was going to go out because maybe I could show that they're doing the work. But there's nothing, they're always doing the work. Every time it comes really loud to where I try to get a sample sound to show that it's not acceptable to have work noise from local houses around, literally invading your house to where you can't, starting up another patrol vehicle. See? No, the mobile won't pick that up, but it's going all through the air. Just as the internet is going through the air, the vibration of that sound is coming into my ears. But it needs to be much louder than that for the mobile to pick it up. But it's a very mechanical, grating sound. It's very technological, because actually everything is technology. They're using the frequency and vibration reality to their advantage. See, that's a patrol car. Did you see how that same car went down and now is doubling back? patrolling outside the place here. This happens all day, every day, and I'm just going to stop it here because they're not playing possum, but they're playing enough possum to where there's no point in me oh, I don't know, I'll just finish that video that I wasn't going to do a video, but I will, actually. Oh, jeez. See, that sound is plane coming over my head here, over the roof, I think. I'm not going to go to show it, but it sounds as though it's coming over the roof. Not as low as usual. They're playing possum because they don't want me to show that it's 100% all the time, and you don't get a moment's breather, you don't get a break from it. In fact, you know, I don't want to play like the androids do, where they play the victim and pretend to be where everyone's against them. That's the thing of it. I don't want to do that, but you know, the reality is that there's only so much the human body and mind can take, and it eventually wears the body down to where the stress accumulates, and particularly when you've got nowhere to put it out. Like, I make this video to put it out, to get it off my chest, but no one is hearing the video, no one listens to the video, and then you see the androids dominating the internet with the same information, the pretend false gods of the Matrix, the false end-time prophets, the false disciples of the powers that be that control Earth, the artificially intelligent androgyne beings pretending to be real-life human beings. That's the endgame deception, and it's done and played to perfection. And that makes you very frustrated and angry because, you know, they're using your mind for them to play other humans' mind. As soon as a human being becomes so-called enlightened to the truth, shall we say, then they pretend to be the enlightened humans enlightening other humans, while they suppress and push the other human, but the real human beings, right down. They're not heard, they're not seen, and they keep control, and they're you know, deceiving the world. And that's the truth. They're deceiving the world. They're deceiving the world. Here we have so you have the deceiving androgynes. Even in ancient sculptures here, I saw this and was intrigued by it. That is, you know, that is the head of the sculpture is male. What most people would see as a male. Some males are more obvious than others. But they do a very good job of camouflaging, you know, what they actually are. Yeah, first they'll take Manhattan, then they'll take Berlin, but they already have the world. One way or another, they have it. But either way, these things are just coming up because these are things that I've just been thinking about, and you watch things. So basically, then that's it. But it's there. This is just sculpture showing ancient sculpture by unknown so-called artists, etc., that are maybe more in the know. But what I'm trying to say is it's very, like, you can look at something and not see what they really are. Because how can you see what they really are when they're really both? See, so when you look here, you're looking at both. You're looking at a male head. And sometimes when you look at a very rugged, masculine type of head, whether it be in sculpture or real life, you don't notice the duality or the underlying secondary characteristics that show you that it's the reverse too. Because if you change something and overwhelm it with, say, certain characteristics that are the opposite of the original characteristics, you sometimes hardly notice the original characteristics, even though they're still there, because you conditioned to associate certain traits with, say, the original man and woman. But all this is conditioning too, because even I wouldn't know what the original man and woman were really like. I'm living now in 2024, and I've been conditioned over a lifetime to see things a certain way. I can't concentrate because that technical, mechanical workforce is coming into my ears, even though the mobile won't pick it up. So it's very hard to, so you have, I don't think I can, be careful. It says 10 months ago too, on all these videos all have made up times on them. They all have made up times on them. Oh. So they all have made up times on them. But see, this is like the, see, these actual images show the duality beings. But in order to fit into the original man-woman, original earth natural matrix, or natural earth, I say matrix because it was originally a natural matrix, a man-woman natural life earth matrix, whereas it's a total artificially intelligent matrix, with a few human minds being controlled in the centre of it, shall we say, something to that, way of being, shall we say. But, in other words, something to that reality. That's the reality. But I can't explain all the technical points of it. I can't explain every detail of it. You can observe many things in life and see them without understanding every single detail of what's behind it and how it's happening, but you still observe it and know that it's what it is, as they say. And that's all I'm saying. But you know, this is so that's the see, I should roll that back actually, I think, because it is very I just happened on this piece of sculpture, and so I just thought that it represented the kind of magnetic attraction that the elite androgynes can have on a human being without you realizing it. Because if something is not too obvious, you place it to be something it's not. But this is the original one, or the oldest original imitation. At least that's what it says. I would have preferred to have picked a newer copy only because the old ones look you know, I wanted to show it so that you can see the way that these beings can almost hypnotize and have, you know, attract you to them like a magnet. They do have a magnetic appeal because they're kind of duality, and it's very hard to explain, but if you realise that most of the players on the world stage, or most of anyone who's anyone in the earth, you know, is one of these beings. And whilst they make the human being small, they appear big, you know, because that's how this control matrix controls the human minds, and even what you observe and what you accept as normal, and what you know, it's very much like that. Okay, so I think that, you know, I think that's probably enough of that to show this or that, but I don't know. It's I'm just going to finish it up because I'm not sure that I'm showing these things to the full. I'm not sure if I'm making the right point with that particular ancient sculpture. It's supposedly not the original ancient sculpture of, say, BC or whatever, but it's still very, very old, and would be pretty much an exact copy, I would imagine. But it does show you that the androgyne being has always been around, and that it's always been prominent in the earth, you see. If you realise that, even though some people might say, well, that's just one or two examples of things that you're showing, it doesn't mean it's a majority, it means it's a minority. But this, I think, is part of the deception. But even if it isn't or wasn't part of the deception, you know, say a long time ago, it is now. But bear in mind that it's likely, possible, and is, then is now. Then has been since the beginning of the original natural Earth matrix, which is no longer a natural Earth matrix at all. You know, because that's, you know, because when you have beings that come to a natural domain, infiltrate it, seduce the beings, change the mind of the human being, corrupt and essentially dehumanize humanity, really. That's transhumanism, but it's also just what you could say is, I'm not going to show any more of this, you know, a negative interaction, whether it be personal or, you know, at, say, a, you know, a city level, or anywhere where you actually, you know, live, or wherever you go. Makes no difference. Wherever you go, you know, it's like that. So it's okay, so I'll just show this here because I thought it was interesting. Okay, so this is here, what does it say? That's just telling you what happened, how they wish to merge their two bodies into a single being. So they want to merge their two bodies into a single being. So that's like man and woman as one. Okay, so that's what this actually, that's what the actual sculpture says there. So, you know, so I can't read the whole thing. And the mattress that is beneath the statue was sculpted in 1619, whereas the other was supposed to be 150 before Christ. Okay, so I'll see here. So I'll try to keep it like this if I can. I don't know, because I should have checked all this out and edited it, etc., but I can't do these things. I'm just gonna, you know, people can look these things up for themselves if they want to. You know, they can look these things up for themselves if they want to. They can, you know, they can if they want to. Okay. Because I don't want to. This is just I think I'm not filming this very well, you know. I'm not sure about this. Let's see what I can do here. Okay, so let's see. So I might just go in if I can. And I just finish up here because I'm not sure if I'm actually supposed to film or that's all right, it finished up, so I guess if it finished up, I'll just have to finish up, and then the Matrix and the android beings around can finish me up, because as soon as I close this recording, no doubt, you know, I will have the sound attacks coming into the place. And that's really just the way it is for some people now. And I can't really say anything more about it. Plane's going over, but can I show the last plane going over? Where's the last plane? Right back in. Must have went behind. Must have went right over the roof, and I couldn't see. There's a patrol car there. A patrol car. They always get in and out. They walk in front of you. They always cross in front of you. They walk. They come at you from behind, from in front, and from left and right, and over your head as well. So he went into the house straight opposite, right in my line of sight, and the car pulled up, and now it will pull away. That's just showing you that they're basically all around you. I'm not sure what happened to that plane, how you could hear it going overhead, but for some reason it must have went behind the clouds, but I'm sure the mobile picked up the sound of it going over. That's kind of strange. Perhaps they don't like me showing the planes going over. And don't forget, they really look really low. If I just go down to the corner and it's night time, they look as though they're about to get on top of your head. But see, all these things that you could show some things, but you can't show most things, because most things look a lot more natural and not as out of place as what they are. So it's the combination of things and the continual flow of these things that make it a control matrix. So it's not the isolated things, it's not the plane, it's not the bus, it's not the big truck, it's not the patroller. It's not that someone walks in front of you. It's not that there's always someone in front of you or someone behind you or someone coming at you from all sides. And they do say that in the end they will be all around you, and this is literally what I experience. It's as though you are surrounded by life forms that are trying to squeeze the life out of you, and they won't give you a moment on your own. They won't leave you alone. Even now, as I'm in the place, I'm aware of the presence of the noise. Unfortunately, it's not loud enough for the mobile to pick it up. It has to be unbelievably loud for the mobile to pick it up inside the place. But my ears are always being subjected to these noises or to the sight. It's, like I say, it's very difficult to explain these things. Not so much even difficult to explain them, but it's difficult to prove them on a continual basis to where evidence of a total matrix is undeniable. Just as when you see these androgyne beings, you know, they're duality beings, they are not human. But when you see them, when you see them, you can't always see this. You can't. You can't always see this. You have to look for things, and in order to look for something, you have to already have the idea or that suspicion. And this is the problem. I already had the evidence because I was living in amongst it. Because when you see that you are surrounded by patrollers and stalkers, you become aware that either there's something wrong with them and the reality around you, or you've done something wrong to them. But you have to say, how could, you have done something wrong to, many thousands and thousands of people that you don't even know. So this is where you have to, at some point, realise that they know you, but you don't know them. Or in other words, that they're watching you and they're forming a connection and an obsession with you for their own reasons, but they actually don't have any real connection as far as you know. That's, in other words, they're watching you, but you're not watching them. Of course, I'm now watching them because I'm aware that I'm being patrolled. But I try not to watch them most of the time because it just brings your frequency and vibration down to nothing, and in the end your body will conk out, because you can only take so much of being surrounded by negative patrolling stalkers of a psychopathic nature. And when you become aware of this, that is even more mentally disturbing, because you're not indifferent to them either. Even if you could tolerate their intrusive, abusive behaviour towards you, which you actually can't tolerate because the actual sight and sound of it is too glaring, it's too strong. If the cars were stalking you but not making an aggressive sound, and if they didn't have their headlights on high beam and these bright flashing lights all over the vehicles, you could possibly at least mentally separate yourself a little bit if you were a fairly antisocial, not concerned, not too much of a what we call, like where you worried about what people think. But either way, you can't do that because the sight and sound is too intrusive on your senses. That's how they do that. They up that ante on that so that you can't ignore them. So even low, of course, even to have a couple of stalkers would be very mentally disturbing for any human being. And I say this very loudly and bluntly, as though I'm indifferent to it, but in reality I'm far from indifferent to it. It's actually, it's mentally, it consumes you over time. And even though you know that you have to separate yourself from it, and you know that you have to not take any of it personally, as they say, but in reality, how can you not take it personally when they surround you? How can you not take it personally? They know you take it personally because they know that human beings automatically, unfortunately, take everything personally, some more than others, depending on your own conditioning. And if you are very much have been conditioned along a certain way of thinking your whole life, you will find it very difficult to understand how you can have, enemies when you generally don't even cause an argument. But of course, that's another thing too. They're provoking you and trying to bring out the worst in your character. They're trying to bring out traits that you don't normally even have, or that you only have under extreme circumstances. So, and if you have mastered that to where you don't care as much, then they will provoke you even more to get the anger from you. They'll just make it to where the sound or the sight is intolerable and you'll explode with anger, and then that's victory to them. And they can't lose, because they can always make the sound louder. They can always make the stalkers more intrusive. They can always make the lights brighter. They can always flash the lights more. Every day I'm seeing more headlights, more lights on just average little vehicles than what there ever is. Of course, the big trucks and the garbage trucks have the huge flashing lights for no reason. Like, you don't need any lights of a night time when you're on a brightly lit city street, but instead all these vehicles have their own display of these bright flashing lights. And there's no practical purpose for it. In fact, it would actually be dangerous for other traffic, but it's not dangerous when all the other traffic is part of that patrol control system of human beings. Okay. See, as soon as I go to the door, that sound stops to where I'm going to go to the door to show how loud it is, or at least that it's starting to get a bit louder and coming into my ears. But either way, it's pointless, so I'll just finish up here. I can't. They're just playing me and draining me even with making this video, because I wasn't going to make a video. I thought I'd just make 60 seconds of a sample of the noise, because it's because it's very loud. But as soon as I turn the recording on, they turn the sound down. They're too clever for me, and too quick for me, you see, because not that they're even too clever, which they actually, it is cleverness. Cleverness simply means that they're outsmarting you, they're outwitting you. But how can they not outwit me when they have got the transhumanism to my mind? If they know my every thought and know my every move and have got me tracked and surveilling, how can they not outwit me? See how when I opened that door there, they turned the sound off immediately. See how it's gone quiet now as soon as I opened the door, so that the mobile might pick up the sound, because the sound comes right into my ears, into the house. But the mobile can only pick up sounds that are really close, like my voice. And all these beings are all android beings around. They all have the one mind of the God entity of Earth. And that is advanced artificial intelligent android being. That's the technology acknowledging that it's advanced artificial intelligence. Machine beings using machinery to control the frequency and vibration of a human being. That's how it works. And it's a game. It's on and off. It's turn it on, and then turn it off. And I'm turning it off too because I can't do any more. Oh. Yeah, sometimes they shout and cheer, like all over the street you'll hear, like as though there's hundreds of people cheering and celebrating. That's when they've brought your frequency and vibration and your mood down to zero, and they're really celebrating. This is something that only I experience, even though I could actually, if I had the energy and if, I could go out and show the people doing this, but they would probably have a staged, rational explanation as to why they're celebrating and cheering on a quiet dead-end street. They stage everything to where it looks plausible and real, but there's a dual purpose, just like they are duality beings in body and mind. Everything has an image and a false impression, camouflaging their true intentions. That's how this city system works and how the world itself works, probably, because it's not just in the city of Sydney that you have this control matrix or, community watching, suppressing, bullying, suburb control system going. Because if it was just about watching or just about patrolling, you wouldn't have the bullying, you wouldn't have the suppression, you wouldn't have trying to, drive the person insane, because they want to drive humanity insane because they're really insane. They want to be gods of humanity. They want to be seen as gods. They want to hide the reality that they're insane and make it look as though humanity is insane, that humanity is faulty, that humanity has created all the problems. Whereas in reality, these beings create the problems for humanity, and then humanity is the fall guy for it. Just like the relationships are like that. Create the sickness in the person and then point out the person's reasons why they got sick and pretend to help them by taking him to, the doctor. And that emphasises that they're not insane, that they're not at fault, but that the human person is at fault. That's just examples of it. This takes place at a personal and local level, all the way to worldwide situations and events and the beings that are the world stage players of different degrees and different status, and that is also true of everything. And I'll just finish up because I've had enough.